Hi, so I'm live. I didn't think I'd go live so soon. Let me drink. A really bad cough. So for anyone who's watching in the future after the live stream's done, what I want to touch on tonight is I want to touch on a few of the myths or misconceptions about ecosystems and stuff. Excuse me, I'm really sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about ecosystems I've found. Ecosystem aquariums, and I wanted to touch on them. I've noticed a few things being said in forums lately, and I don't think that a lot of what people are saying is true, and I think it needs addressing. Just waiting for people to come on. So I thought to give it a couple of minutes for people to come on, and then I'll get into tonight's topic. But this tank here, I'm calling it my pre-wall start tank. So what I'm doing is I'm just collecting a few plants for I'm putting them in here. I've planted a few, but it's just sand at the bottom at the moment. There's no soil in it, and then there's a bit of gravel on top. The Vallisneria and the LOD Adensa, they're planted into the gravel, and then I've got some pots with soil here that I've potted up, so the plants have got something to grow into. There's a lot of another thing I wanted to get, there's a lot of the crypts and stuff are melting, which is another thing. If you plant a wallstad up and everything melts, it's not growing. So when you first set a wallstad up, it's going to go nuts, isn't it? So I'm just trying to figure out how many footage is coming across. It should be that way, but there's no one on spot. Yeah, so as I say, the crypts are melting, so if it's going to balance, it's in the first couple of weeks, it's going to release loads of organics, isn't it? And if it's releasing organics and the plants aren't growing, they're not going to absorb it, and it's going to knock you right out of balance. So it's good to, in my opinion, it's good to let everything settle in first, and then start, once everything's adjusted to living underwater, then it's better setting up the aquarium in my mind's eye, the ecosystem. So what have I been up to this? So I've been cleaning the bottom tanks out, moving the shrimp breeding colony. Obviously, for anyone who watches the channel regularly, I've put a load of red cherry shrimp in this tank with the aim of breeding them out. I was going to do a breeding shrimp for profit video. They seem to do really well, but as I always say, no one seems to be people seem to be saying that they're breeding shrimp, but they don't really show anyone breeding shrimp, so they just tend to sit in front of a box or a tank and talk about doing shrimp breeding, but they don't really actually show you the shrimp that they're breeding and stuff. So I wanted to get in, and in this tank I've bred a couple of hundred at the moment by the looks of it. There's quite a few in there, and then that's my red cherry shrimp, and then underneath I've moved my blue from the small tank into this tank. So I popped them in there this week. They seem to be really active and stuff, and I want to try and get them going now. So excuse me, I don't know where I've gone really chesty all of a sudden. But there's these, I want to get these going the way I've got the reds going. But I still don't know. So there's them, and then the yellows. Once I get this dirted, I'm going to move the yellows into here. So I've got reds, blues and yellows breeding. I'm going to move the guppies out of here and down into the big planted. Well, that's as far as the way I see this is a plant storage tank for any other projects. I want to get this as a traditional wallstad tank in the next couple of weeks. I've ordered everything to do with, but the only thing that hasn't turned up is the cap. I've got soil and everything here ready to dirty. I'm going to go with a different mixture, to be honest. I'm going to go with a guy on UK Aquatic Plant Society, which is George Farmer's forum group. I'm going to go with his mix because his mix is quite cheaper. Oh right, okay. I don't know what's going on there, mate. Can I? No, I can't. I don't know what's going on. So the camera's on. How's that? I don't understand why it's done that. So I've set it all up this way, and then that's it. I don't know why it's done that, to be honest. I've changed my camera. I noticed everything was on its side, but my camera used to do portrait, landscape, and now for some reason it's wanting me to do portrait. It's quite strange, but now the camera's right up there. So, and I've just spent ages setting up the camera, so it's in portrait, looking at the tank, and now if I had to bin that idea off. How is everyone? Is everyone okay? Well, there's always a delay, isn't there? I'm using a different microphone tonight. I don't know whether you were on last weekend. I used a different microphone, so I don't know how the sound's coming through. I find this camera picks up my voice better, but it also picks all the background noise up as well, so I thought I'd gamble and give it a go because it sounds better, but there's more background noise. It's what 10 to, isn't it? Let's just have it, if I can see. It's 3 minutes before 7 o'clock, so at 10, when this live's on 10, then I've advertised it to start at 7, you see, so I just thought I'd get on early and let people catch up. With everyone having a productive week. I twice this week been offered the chance to do a PhD, become a doctor, so there's that. But if I'm honest, I think it's going to take about 4 to 6 years depending on how I do the PhD, because you can do, I'm getting talked into doing a PhD part-time, but if I'm honest, the tuition fees it costs a year and the amount of time it entails, I'd rather put that into growing on YouTube and stuff. I wouldn't mind if I was 20, then yeah, doing a PhD would be it'd set you up for life, but by the time I've finished mine, I'm looking at about 15 years before I retire, 10, 15 years. With all that debt, it doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't really appeal to me at this time of life, I don't know. I mean, I suppose everyone would love to be called doctor, but if you're not going to get a lifestyle out of it for a long period of time, I don't really, I'd rather do this, to be honest. I'd like, people always say to you, don't they, if man worked nights. I didn't see her for years, and then when she finished working nights, we got divorced. So there's that. It's funny how people change, isn't it? You know, they start spending time in the house and you fall out. Just gonna get me a drink. Premier Aquatics, don't know whether anyone's in the UK, they just won loads of awards with the Practical Fish Keeping magazine. I was going to speak about 50 seconds before I start getting into it. Yeah, but like I say, if I'm honest, I think if I was to spend that money now, over time, I think I'd rather invest it in building a YouTube channel, because the amount of returns you get on doing that is, I think it'd be far more productive. I can't believe it was sideways. It's weird the way, like, my old phone set this up this way, and it was landscape, but for some reason, I don't know whether YouTube's changed the live thing or what, but It's strange the way it's done that. Like, lucky I don't get embarrassed easily, isn't it? Right, so that's 10 minutes. It's 7 o'clock. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. I thought more people would come on, but hey. Usually they pop in at random times. Well, I don't know whether there's the delay on my screen with how many people are here, because I get comments through. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is I want to touch on the Wallstad and ecosystems, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff and I'm seeing a lot of comments and stuff that I think, well, that's not right. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. So I think people, like, the soil isn't just there. I think people think that the soil's just there just for one thing, but soil, as it converts into its underwater life, if you like, one for a better term, it not only releases the nutrients that the plants want, but it also releases CO2 into the water column, and I don't think people grasp that. So you see a lot of people on social media talking about setting up like a Wallstad tank or a father fish tank, or an ecosystem in general, and they've got sponge filters running in the aquarium. That's supposed to be an ecosystem with soil underneath. If it's an ecosystem, planted ecosystem, and you've got a sponge filter running in it, it's gassing off all the CO2 that the substrate's releasing, so you're killing like 50% of the reason why you're setting up the ecosystem in the first place with soil. So that's a big no-no. That's a good question, that. I seen that the other day on one of Father Fish's talks. CO2, is that what's in the substrate for it? So this is my take on it. Father Fish says 1 inch of soil, 2 inch of cap. Now, I'm not the only. Diana Wallstad says if you're using sand, you want a thin cap. If you're using gravel or anything, the bigger the particle size, the deeper you need to go with it. The smaller you go with the particle size, the smaller the cap you need, because you can create an anoxic or anaerobic zone at the bottom. So when you cap it with that, if it goes anoxic, basically all the beneficial bacteria that we use in our sponge filters and all around our tank, when the water that is cycling, it's highly oxygenated, then the beneficial bacteria, they use oxygen, and then with the ammonia they produce nitrites and nitrates. But when you take away the oxygen, they start using nitrogen, and when they start doing that, that's anaerobic respiration. Then they'll start releasing hydrogen sulfide and stuff like that, and methane. And there's a debate whether it's toxic enough. Like they say, it's toxic for your fish and your plants, but to get back to your question, in a highly aerobic substrates where there's oxygenated respiration going on with the bacteria, they will release CO2 as the byproduct of they'll release the ammonium into the water column. But if it's anaerobic, then they're releasing the likes of hydrogen sulfide, and they're releasing methane, stuff like that, which is building up. That's the gas. And people will argue saying, well, hydrogen sulfide's not toxic. It's not toxic to fish. It just bubbles out your tank. And I think, no, you're missing the point of having the soil there. If it's not producing CO2 and ammonium for the plants to absorb, you may as well just use the sand, because you can plant the sand. You can plant stem plants and stuff in sand, and then just feed them a fertilizer, and your planted tank's doing just as well as it would. Obviously, there's going to be less CO2 in the system, But you could just dose like Flourish XL or another liquid carbon source, or you can just go with higher lights and do a high-tech tank. But the point I'm trying to make is, if it's gone anoxic, the filtration in the substrate, and the bacteria are turning it straight into different gases and not CO2 and ammonia. I think they bind the ammonia with live plants in here. At the moment I've got Vallisneria, Elodea densa, Ludwigia repens, I think it is, I'm not too sure, along here. Like, I was in my fish shop and the guy just handed me just a big mound of, it looks like Elodea, not Elodea, it looks like Ludwigia repens, and it's in that tank, and it just floated at the top, to be honest. You might see bits of it floating, and as it grows stems, I just chop them and plant them in the substrate. Over here I've ordered Hygrophilia polysperma, I've got an Amazon sword, I've got an Amazon sword ocelot at the back, I've got Brazilian pennywort, I've got three, not really make me cook, is it? I've got three different types of crypts in there, but they're all melting back, so I've got tons of substrate all around here ready to dirt this. I've got some horticultural grit. I'm sat on a ton of moss peat and topsoil as well. I don't know why I keep I don't think about it in my life. So that's what I've got going on. I've also got dwarf hairgrass here, and then my holding tank down here, which I can't. I'd love to be able to just take the camera up, but I've got a whole setup going on. Down here I've got Pogostem installatus octopus. I've got Crinum calamastratum, and I've got lily bulbs. I've ordered another couple of cool Amazon swords that I want for this. I don't know, because I've got the 5-foot tank here and I want to dirt that as well, but I want to kind of do two different styles of dirted tank. But I don't know. I want to get, because I've got a big old Crenum Natans sat in the tank here, and I want to get that in there, because it's got the space to spread out in there. And I've popped it in here. I've been dosing it with this one. So I'm getting this kind of rhizotonic. People who grow, as Bentley Pascoe called it, people who grow basement tomatoes, he calls them. If you know what I'm about. People use that to get their plants going in the basements, and I've been dosing that with this, and I've noticed the Crenum Natans has started throwing roots since I've been using it. So it came with no roots on. It's floating on. Let's have a look. So there's my Crenum. It's throwing all roots out here, and I put that down to the fact that I'm dosing with, make sure the precious roots are in the water. I'll put that down to using that rhizotonic, because it makes plants throw roots. People in bonsai use it. So that's my first misconception of the wall stab method. This whole saying you're setting up an ecosystem and then throwing the likes of an air stone or something in there, because you want there to be no turbulence at the top of the tank. There's an argument that if you use something like a gyre and get it to push, but you don't break the surface tension, if the surface travels along in laminar flow, I think you've got turbulent flow and turbulent flow, and then the opposite to laminar flow, isn't it, where it just moves straight. Now when you turn your tap on, it looks like glass. That's the laminar flow. And if you've got that going at the top, CO2 can diffuse, but your plants need to be photosynthesizing, and it has to be like negative, like with the atmosphere, because it'll go to equilibrium, if that makes sense. the CO2 will only come in if it's turbulent. It'll just gas off and it'll let oxygen in. So that's my first. As I say, with the substrates releasing gas and then the CO2. If it's oxygenated, what was the other? There was another key point I keep coming across this week with talking about. I'd say that cap one as well, where everyone seems to be promoting this 2-inch cap of sand, and this 2-inch cap of sand. Here's my question. Like, so I had this before in I don't know whether you're on Facebook, on the Warstad group. There's a Warstad group, and I don't know why, but I've been on there this week and started posting, and the group's flown. Like, I think it's picked up about 1,000 followers this week, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet or anything, but I've kind of pushed the group. I've been commenting and sharing and stuff and posting articles and stuff, and it's been getting busy, the group, and I've just noticed the amount of people joining's gone right up. I'm not saying it's me, I'm just saying, like, I've been pushing to increase the activity on there, and I wish I could do that with my YouTube channel. Or I found with my Facebook page, because I've got Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. My Facebook page had a period of time where I was getting quite a bit of traffic on there, and then Facebook was telling me it was going out to a wider and wider audience. But anyway, what I'm saying is there's that group. It's picked up about 1,000 people on the group this week, but there's a lot of people talking about this 2-inch sandbed and with capping the dirt, and I don't understand the theory behind it, because everyone, like Dustin's Fish Tanks, I don't know whether everyone knows Dustin's Fish Tank, because he was on YouTube. Well, I suppose he's still on YouTube now, but he's not doing the same type of stuff as he was a few years ago. He was like posting videos every Sunday a few years ago. Now he just seems to do shorts. But he talks about, if you use a 2-inch sand cap, it's going to go anoxic or anaerobic. And down at Warstad in the Ecology of the Planted Aquarium talks about having a thin substrate because of it'll go anaerobic, and now all of a sudden everyone's telling me about this 2-inch sand cap, and it makes no sense, because, and then here's the killer to me. They say you can't, well, if you use gravel, you're gonna get algae, and to that I say, well, maybe that's a sign that the ecosystem's starting to kick in, but it's not balanced yet. And that brings me on to my second point, actually. So to me, that's a sign that the ecosystem is balancing. And another thing that they say along with this 2-inch sand, you can put your shrimp, your fish and invert in straight away. Straight away, to me, that says, so if you can put all this soil, all this organic material in your tank, and then you can put fish in, then it's not working. Like, it literally is telling you, because if there's no ammonia in that water column penetrating through that sand, then there's no nutrients getting into the water column, because there's no ammonia getting in. And I'm like, so, and then if there's, my chain of thought is, so if the ammonia can't get through, then the CO2 can't get through, or it's inhibiting it massively. So if you've set up a method of inhibiting it, what's the point in putting it there in the first place? It just doesn't make sense, that. But here's my second point. A fundamental misunderstanding of the Warstad method, and I'm going to kind of point you to Lucas Brett's, if people know Lucas Brett. I know he's like, his channel's massive, but people say, oh, there's an inherent flaw with the Warstad method. You get to about 6-12 months and it runs out of nutrients, and I think to myself, that's not an inherent flaw with the Warstad method, that's an inherent flaw with your understanding of the Wallstad method. And the reason why I say that is if you watch LRB's channel, his videos, if you notice the way he goes out in his garden, he's got no water flow in his tanks. He goes out in his garden, digs up a bit of mud, puts it in the tank, leaves it, gets loads of algae, and he lets it burn out. Well, that's the Wallstad method, isn't it, really, if you think about it? And then once all that's happened, there's an analogy, right? So imagine like travelling to the moon. Imagine that's like setting up a Wallstad method tank. When you're here on Earth, that rocket's packed full of it's packed full of like solid rocket fuel to get it into, like, get it out of Earth's atmosphere. So it blasts off with all this volatile fuel and gets itself out of Earth's orbit and off into space. But most of the travelling is done between out of Earth's atmosphere and to the moon. That's like most of the journey. So with the Wallstad method, I know it sounds a bizarre analogy, but you want to get rid of all that excess. You want to burn all that off, and then use rosette plants. Like, if you look, like, everyone sets up stem plants which are really fast. They want loads of nutrition now, and they want loads of CO2 to do well. But if you look at Diana Wallstad's tanks, they're not full of stems. She's got a couple in. And there's that guy who put out that video, wasn't there? George Farmer put it out, and then he kicked off his YouTube channel where he's got a 28-year-old tank, and that's running on nutrient cycle. You can't see me now. That's just running on nutrient cycling, which that's what the Wallstad method is fundamentally about. It's getting over that initial balance, which can be quite tricky, I'll be honest, and you're going to get algae blooms. And like I say, LR Brett just sits back and lets it all go, and then eventually the tank will balance itself, and then he starts using it for breeding. And then you get people, on top of that, you get people saying you can't use Wallstad for breeding. Well, Diana Wallstad breeds guppies in hair bowls, and LR Brett basically uses the same plants, no water flow. He uses them for his breeding setups, and then you got people saying you can't breed in the Wallstad method. Well, they're basically using the same system, aren't they, to breed? So as far as I'm concerned, like, the evidence suggests to the contrary. But they're like the two biggest myths with the I think, is there anything else that anyone wants me to talk about? Like, I'll be honest, I'm not like expert level with the Wallstad, but I've spent probably about 10 years studying it, so, and there's still stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, like, still learning today. I've read 2 of the 4 editions, so it always takes about 45 seconds to catch up. So if anyone asks me a question now, it'll probably pop up on my screen in about 45 seconds. No questions. So that's what I wanted to get off my chest, kind of thing, this week. What else did I want to touch on? So I've already talked about my shrimp breeding. I've read, I go mad in there. I was thinking of putting a video out on me shrimp breeding, because I find a lot of people do it and then they talk about it and they don't actually show you the shrimp breeding. Obviously there's the likes of Mark Shrimp Tanks and Jordan, is it, or something. There's 2 like expert level shrimp breeders, and they've got like massive tanks. But I find people are like, you can't see the tanks, but like, I've got little 25 litre 5-gallon tanks behind me. I've struggled to breed shrimp in them. And like I said on last week's thing, because in this tank you can throw spinach in, like blanched spinach, blanched nettles. I've got a bag of nettles down here which I blanch and throw in, and as they start decaying, the shrimp will eat it. It's full of magnesium, it's full of calcium, all the stuff that a Wallstad tank and shrimp want, snails want. and there's a buried female just there, sat munching away in front of me. But that's what I love doing, and I like to get a cube of like a bloodworm, Daphne, drop that in. Females eat that, buried. Like if you can get them to shed and eat protein, they're buried, you'll get tons of babies. That whole tank, there's hundreds, and the snails in there as well. I throw cucumber, that's full of magnesium, calcium, potassium. So there's 3 macronutrients, macro and micronutrients that your plants want. And basically I've got a tank full of plecos, shrimp, snails, all munching on spinach, cucumber, courgettes, all these things that are full of these things. And then they're just putting out little fertiliser packages all around my tank, one for a better word. So that's what's going on there. And then I've just set up my blues, Blue Dreams, and I've been looking at them. God, they've coloured up. I got them from Pro Shrimp. That's what they call the lasagna method, isn't it? You start off with a thin substrate of sand, gradually add dirt and leaves, etc. Yeah. So that's kind of like a lasagna method. Now that makes sense to me, because, and here's another thing, people are saying to you can't put green leaves in your aquarium, but I put nettles and spinach in my tanks, and as I say, my shrimp nail everything and they poop out little fertiliser pellets. Yeah. Now sand, I'll be honest, I've used sand. This is a Blackwater tank last year. I love Blackwater. Here's the thing with me, like, I've just noticed I'll either have an active substrate or I won't have any substrate. In my mind's eye, if it's not active and it's not doing something for your tank, it's easy for it to just be bare bottom. I think I'd rather just be able to gravel vac it, like anything else, rather than have something that's not doing anything. Arguably this isn't doing, but what you're doing there with the lasagna method, I kind of do the same thing. I don't gravel vac my substrate in this tank. I'm just letting it fill up with mold, and then, like you said, what I'll do, like I've done it down here, like I wish I could just pick the camera up and show you. This week I put akadama and lava. The akadama's here, and the lava, the pelleted lava. If it's bare bottomed, I'll vacuum it. If it's not bare bottomed, like, this is my way of thinking. If it's not bare bottomed with me, if it's not bare bottomed, it's got plants in. The only way to do it is, there's a guy, I don't know whether you've seen him, Lush and Salty Aquarium. He's just set this 5-gallon tank up, and he's got epiphytes in bare bottom tank, and I was like, that's such a cool idea. But if it's not doing anything for the fish and the shrimp and the plants, like, you know, with like Caradina shrimp, you need like an aqua soil or akadama, something that's going to soften the water. You could, if it's not doing something like that, there's no point in my mind's eye being there. I'd rather just gravel back it out, like being able to just clean the bottom so it's immaculate, because then you're stopping parasites. Why run the risk of giving parasites somewhere a chance to breed if the substrate's not doing nothing for you? So I do a similar thing to you, like with this tank. I've spread a little layer of gravel out, and I let the mold build up in the gravel, and then I put another layer over. And that's what I've been doing with that tank. That's what I've been doing with that tank. And I find it's quite hard to plant in at first, because obviously it's still quite shallow. But I build it up as I go along. But I wanted to fill in with mold. I don't want to be able to see the mold, like against the front. Like I can see from, there's like an inch on this tank, and it's full of mold at the front, because that's why I have plecos in there. because the amount of cacking they do is amazing. If you want plants going, the downside with geckos, they can eat your plants, can't they? But I always have cucumber or courgette or something in there. See, you know what you're talking about. If you get stems in a wall start tank for 6 months, they'll fly. You'll get stems that big, and within a few months they'll be, they want to go down they're getting well more CO2 in a dirted tank than they are in anything else. Like, unless it's direct injected CO2, because you're making sure they've got the optimum level of CO2 there, aren't you? Because you've got the little things. And then rosette plants, that's what I was saying with my analogy. Once you get out into outer space, on my analogy on the way to the moon, then the likes of your stems are going to struggle. But that's perfect territory for your rosette plants, the likes of your crypts, your apongitons, your crinums, your Amazon swords. The problem is, the hobby has got us obsessed with plants that they call, not the hobby, the industry, that they call buy and dies. They expect stem plants to die on it, to crap out and die. Now, arguably I've had all these for a year and they're still going. Me Rotala rotundifolia is just a stem, but that's because it's been sat in the corner, and the light's on the front of the tank, that's at the back, and it's got all floating plants, so it's just basically sat in a shadow, so it's not going to do well there. And I know that, and it's down to me being a bit of a pain, lazy. But the rest of the tank's flying. This tank seems to be flying. Where's my bin? This, I can't do it. That is all floating plants that I've taken out this week. And I keep saying to people, if you're local and you want floating plants, Alvinia, if you'll pay the postage, I'll send you whatever. I could send you that in a week. Because once your tank gets going, the amount of floating plants you can grow in a week is ridiculous. And if I haven't got TNC complete, I'm getting TNC iron as well. If I haven't got dirt in my tank, I'll dose that. But I won't dose it to the level that they say. I dose it to a lower level, because the way I look at it is, it tells you on there to dose, is it 1 mil per 10 litres or something? 1 mil per 10 litres. That's what you want to be doing, isn't it? One thing I'd love to do, do you know what bugs me about my area? Just going off on a tangent, but I'm on a live stream, I've got time to talk. The one thing that bugs me about my area is everyone wants to make a profit off everyone else. No one wants to give to anyone, and that really bugs me. That there's a Facebook group in my area, and it's got about 5,000 people on in my local area, and I think that bugs about everyone wants to make a profit off everyone else. Now, I've got the Copa Carolinia there, that's 12 inches, and I'm thinking to myself, should I prune them? And there isn't anywhere. I'd have to move that Java fern, which seems to be happy where it is, so I'd have to move that to accommodate the Copa Carolinia. But what I'd like to do ideally is just trim it, and making pounds to my hobby would destroy. I agree. I look at it the other way round, me as well. If I was chasing money through the hobby, I'd give it up, because then you turn it into a business. But if it was the other way around, if someone said to me, I I really want to buy, I don't know, like I've sold a couple of goldfish this in the last year, a couple of fancy goldfish, and those people really wanted it, so I just sold them for what I paid for it, because they were like, oh, I need that fish. And obviously there's never going to be, it's going to be rare to find the exact same fancy goldfish as what you've got. They're always slightly different, aren't they? So I'll take money off people if I'm making them really happy, but I won't go out to make a profit. But like I was saying, I wish this Bacopa, I could just chop it in half right now and jump on Facebook and be like, does anyone want to swap? Has anyone got, I don't know, Rotala orange juice or... And I'd love to do that. Like I've got Salvinia red root floaters, I've got Amazon frogbit, all going in the tanks, and that's it, yeah. Like I'm not into making, like I'd never want to make a profit off people, and if I'm honest, like with regards to my channel, I've got no ambition to do merch, or, well, tell a lie, I have ordered some, but that's for me to wear, not to sell. So like I never want to do that unless someone was like, unless people like we really want it, and then I'll take the money and make better content with the money, if that makes sense. But it'd all go back into making better content, because that's why I'm here. And my whole philosophy is, we're all fish keepers, we all love fish, we all love the hobby. I've seen a comment before somewhere saying the reason why we're so passionate about the hobby is because of the stuff we do with our tanks and the people we get to experience these things with. And that's true, and that's my whole philosophy on having a channel. Like, I'm under no illusion that I've got fans, and never will. It doesn't matter how big the channel gets. People aren't here to see me, they're here to learn from my experiences, and I'll never have any other type of opinion other than that with regards to my channel. And I don't see myself as teaching people either. Like, a lot of people like to talk down to people. I just want to share my experiences, because you always get that thing, don't you? You always get that chippy idiot in a forum who thinks he knows better than everyone else, and that bugs me, because usually they don't know what they're talking about either. That always bugs me, and that'll always be my opinion. Like, I always want to give someone something back, but like, I want to experience this hobby with other people, and I've seen a few things in the hobby where it's really offended me, and people in my local area have basically ripped people off who have been in a vulnerable stage. And that's the thing, Joey Mullen said some 70% of the people in our hobby, and this has always stuck with me, like, love or hate Joey Mullen, I've watched him since he started. He says no one did, but I did. I remember him building the DIY overflow thing. I remember sitting him talking in his basement, I think it was, with Tanganykan, what are they called? Cichlids, the Dubois. I can't remember what they're called. Tropheus icola, and that he had Dubois in the background. I think they were Dubois. They were definitely Tropheus icola. I remember him sitting there, and I was watching him then, and I stopped watching him a couple of years ago. He's not putting out content I want to watch, which is fair enough. Like, but the point I'm making is, he said 70% of this people in this hobby are like down on the luck. They've got mental health problems. They live in a situation where they're distressed. So 70% of people are living this life where, like, I don't know how to define it, but their own brain is tormenting them, or they're in this bad situation in life. Like, I'm not comfortable ripping them off, like, really not, or making a profit from them. If getting their sleeves wet in a fish tank is the only break they get from reality, from this like miserable existence, like, I'm not saying their lives are miserable, but I'm saying the way they're experiencing their life at that moment, if they're depressed, if that's their only break from that existence in their head, Like, come on. That's what bugs me about the industry. If 70% of the people are in this hobby are in distress and they've got mental health problems and like they're really down on the luck, and you're telling them they need a £400 filter and a £500 light and £300 gas worth of CO2 system and stuff, I'm really not comfortable with that. Like, if I knew someone was in that situation, like, you know, there's a guy, what was his name? I absolutely love this channel, Saltwater guy. I can't think. I can picture his logo and I can picture his face. I just can't remember the name of the YouTube channel. He was Saltwater, he was a veteran. And he used to sell corals and stuff through a website. He used to frag corals and grow them out and like literally I think he could bring a dead coral back to life, he was that good at it. But he used to go out around setting fish tanks up for veterans, and I used to be like he'd use all the money he made from fragging corals and stuff to buy tanks and build tanks for like American combat veterans who like had PTSD and stuff, and like that's the type of stuff I'd love to do. I'm gonna have a vape, to be honest. But that's my opinion on the situation. Like, I feel really comfortable about making profits off. If 70% of the people in the hobby are down on hard times, then they're probably living off like social income, aren't they? So, you know, it's not the richest of people. So that's where I'm up to now with me. I've got my yellows to go in here. Like, totally. If there's anything Joey's ever said that's resonated with me, it's that. Like, that, to be honest, it's mine as well. Just to come in here, roll my sleeves up. I've always got old sweatshirts on when I'm in here. To roll my sleeves up, get them in the tank and get your sleeves just here, soaking wet. Move plants around, knock plants, let them float around. Like, just, don't know. To one thing, right, that's my escape as well from reality. And it got me through the worst time in life. You saw that interview with Alex from Fishery and Joey. Yeah, that went strange quick, didn't it? Like, I just, what happened there? It was like, and I don't know how to say it, because like, it's just something bizarre happened, didn't it, live? And it was just like, just went downhill very fast and became like really antisocial, like quite fast. I don't think I remember Joey was like, no, you're wrong, to Alex, and Alex was like, no, but I'm not. But I just found the whole scenario like really awkward and bizarre. That was, up to that point, that interview was like really interesting. He's also said, who else did he say it to? There was another interview, I seen him saying it as well. Joey questioned Alex's research. But the thing is like, my opinion on that is just because you've got more subscribers that subscribed 10 years ago doesn't mean you're right. Do you know what I mean? Just, it doesn't automatically make your opinion right if someone else has done the research. So, I think people like, I don't know how to like define that situation, but it might, like, some might have more subscribers because of the time that they've been in live on YouTube. And like I always say, people say, my face is really itching. People always say that back in the day YouTube was harder, and I don't really think it was. because, like I said on my last live stream, there used to be a categories section on the side of your YouTube home screen, and you could click on the category you were interested in, and the latest video from everyone in that category would pop up. So all you had to do was pick a time slot, say, like, for argument's sake, like I picked 7 o'clock tonight to go live. I could say 7 o'clock, my video will go live, and it'd be top of the list for everyone to watch. Didn't matter how big your channel was. Like, you got a certain period of time where your video was live, and people, so there was no algorithm, there was no trying to get your video to go out to the widest audience possible, which is like extremely difficult if you've got a smaller channel. If you've got a couple of thousand subs, or like say you've got like 10,000 subs and you put out a video and your subs watch your video, the YouTube algorithm's pushing out to a massive audience straight away. If you've got like a couple of hundred subs and you put a video out and like 50% of your subs watch your video, it's not going out to a big pool of, like, you've got to get through about 3 barriers just to get the amount of views that a big YouTuber's got. So I wasn't too keen on that flexing episode in that live stream, if I'm honest, because I just felt that Alex was right in what he was saying, and I think I'd have been like, well, hang on a second, like, what I'm saying is right. Like, if I know I'm right, I won't back down. If I'm like, you're categorically wrong, you can say it as many times as you want, but you're categorically wrong. Like, in other situations, I'd be like, listen, let's agree to disagree. I'd rather agree to disagree than fall out with someone. But when you know, like, a fact is a fact, and they're just arguing with, like, they're at that point, it becomes a one-sided argument, because you're like, well, this is the truth, this is reality, this is the fact. You can argue with me as much as you want, but I can't make what you're saying right if it's not. Do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like you're arguing with yourself, because it's like, this is a concrete fact. Excuse me. But that's another thing I was going to say. So I've got all these going, and then what I want to do in the spring is do a bit of, I don't know whether, but Dustin's fish tanks out there, get some ponds set up, get some yeah, like, you saying that now makes me wonder, do you think it was staged? It does make me, like, when you say it was silly, like, I just said I didn't know how to take it. Do you think it was real? It makes me wonder now, because it was a bit, I don't know, because it was strange the way Alex left, came back, and then it all just went off. But I want to get a bit of Dustin's going outside in the summer and get some, like I seen him do one year, like the forest near, he put it in a pond outside, and within like a couple of months there was a bit, wasn't there? So it kind of made me think that something was going on. There was. But I'm thinking of getting Fallisneri out, growing around, and I'll probably give that away. But the thing is, that was like the sad thing about that interview. Like, it was like, it was really engaging to watch until that point. It was really interesting. But I bet you, if that's what I was going to say, I bet you if you look, I bet you Alex's views now and Joey's views are similar. So that's what I was saying with the account thing. Do you know what I mean? Well, if not, I bet you Alex could potentially get them views soon, or on. But I bet you they're not in new views on each video with regard to how much money they're going to make off their channels. I bet you they're similar. And don't get me wrong, I point out I donated to Joey's gallery when he put that video out, because, like, I've followed Joey from the start. Yeah, so that's what I was saying about. I always get lost in my train of thought. See, God. So that's what I want to do in the summer. I want to get some, like, I said I was going to do it last summer, but I'd love to get some ponds outside, some little, like, disposable type ponds. Get some soil in them and do like wall start ponds, grow a load of plants out. I'd like probably just give them away, or some pay for the postage I'd send them. Or get some like nice fish, like white clouds. I love white clouds. What else would go cool outside? I'd love to get like the likes of white clouds outside in the summer, and there's a few other fish I'd love to get outside. Shrimp, get them in ponds, breed them out. As I say, I've got about, oh, there's a really red reel. They're all cherry shrimp. I've got like a little red reely shrimp looking at me now, so it tells me need a bit of culling going on. But floating plants all across the top, and there's tons of cherry shrimp on the top. The bottom's full of cherry shrimp. I've got me blue dream in here, and I've got the yellows down in this tank. Once this tank's going, once this is dirted and it's wall-starred, the yellows are going to go in there, and then once the temperature warms up, they can all go outside. I don't know whether I'll... Yeah, what I'll do is I'll take a handful, get them in ponds outside, and I'll grow them out. And then what I might do is start doing something. I don't know how to do it, like, if I'm honest with you. Like, I'd like some feedback off people, because if I bred shrimp, I'd breed really high quality ones. There's absolutely some stunning red ones in there. They're like deeper red than that. There's nothing redder in the room, but they're like so red. And if I could bucket ponds dug into soil, source of water and beasties, and summer fish, plants to them. I don't know, like, there's something about nature in an aquarium for me. Now, I'm not big on father fishes, go and scoop a thing out of a pond. I'll tell you why I'm not, because there was I was walking around my local nature reserve, and there's a pond at the top of it which you're allowed to fish. It's owned by the local council, and what an angler had fished all this home water out, and I brought it home, and I even dosed, like bleach dosed it, and I still got culminaris in my fish. They were in guppies, and I got saddleback culminaris off it, which was disease resistant. Now luckily I was experienced enough to be able to spot it, like just as it was starting to start. It's the only way I can define it, but like the culminaris was just starting, and I treated it. The treatment didn't work. Treated it again with a different treatment, that didn't work. And I got Isha, whatever it's called. Dosed it with that and nailed it. I was made up. And that's a reason, like, you don't know what's in them ponds, and I'd never advise someone to go out. And that's just off home water, and that home water had been bleached it before I put it in the tank. And the duckweed, there's duckweed in that tank, and you can see all the floating ponds there. Probably 75% of that is duckweed. But coming off the top of my head now, if I could put an alternative out to Father Fish's collecting pond jar thing, whatever he calls it, get a tub. I don't know whether there's, you can get your tub, like your summer tub and things. And what I did was I got a couple of bags of Daphnia, threw them in, and I just put mud on the bottom. There was just mud, just no cap, no nothing, just floating plants, Salvinia, mud, and then I put Daphnia and snails in, and like I'd go out and I'd move the Salvinia and all the walls would just be crawling, absolutely crawling with Daphnia. So I was made up. But that, if I had to put an alternative argument out to father fishes, I'd do that. Get what you want outdoors. Like, I've tried to set Daphnia cultures up in the house. I've used all the yeasts and all that sort of stuff to get them going, and they've never worked. But this one time, putting that out doors, there's something magical about nature outdoors. It just does things, doesn't it? Like, it was just full of Daphnia. It was absolutely full. And the reason why I had the snails in there was to feed the, what you call it? The snails were to feed me pufferfish. I had pea pufferfish, and I had bladder snails and trumpet snails. And I think Corey from Aquarium Co-op said you try and keep Daphnia inside, the culture crashes, you put them outside, flies. And even I found everything crashed. Wow, did they? Did they just turn up? Because that's mad that you say that. Like, because mine crashed at, like, when the temperature was starting to drop in the autumn, and I just left the buckets at the side. And then the next spring when I went out, I had a front hose tank in the room, and I had French doors, and like the double opening PVC doors. And also did was like, right, it's spring, I'm getting some of my Salvinia outdoors, and I threw it in the tub. And then a couple of weeks later, once the weather started warming up, I moved it, the Daphnia all back. And I was like, so I haven't even put anything in that tub to get the Daphnia going. That's a so that's like, there's just so much that happens out. You put goldfish outdoors, you try and breed them indoors, nothing. Like, I found it so hard to breed goldfish indoors. Put them outside in a pond, they can be the same size as your fish tank. And because of nature getting in there, they fly, you know, like gnat larvae or mosquito larvae, whatever you want to call it, that, and all that sort of stuff outdoors. They're still there. That's cool, that. I love all naturey stuff going on in my tank. That's why, if I'm honest, that's why I brought me the duckweed and the hornwort. The mad thing is, hornwort's supposed to be the easiest plant ever. You'll never see it in any of my tanks, because for some reason it just crops out in my tanks, and I've never figured out why. I might get some more just to try it out, but I've never had any luck with hornwort. And I've got Limnophilia sessifolia in here. That's supposed to be another one that's supposed to be dead easy in Kabomba, and they all just crap out in my tanks. It's, strangely enough, that's rocking. It's mad, isn't it? Like, everyone's like, it's the easiest plant in the world. And it's like, well, I don't know, give us an example of... It's a mad plant. Like, if it's happy, it just turns into this angry Hulk, where it's like, roar, it just takes over your whole tank. But if it's not happy, it's like a little princess, it just crops out, throws all its spines, or whatever you want to call them, needles. And it's just, I think I'll die now. Elodea is my favourite plant. This is what I was talking about before with the industry. They all hate on Elodea. That tank is 5 foot, I've got Elodea over there. Elodea is that fucking hard. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. It's that hard. See, you've got me excited now. I'm being all emotional. It's that hard. There's no CO2 in there. It's gonna eat your bleeding KH and just use that as a carbon source, and it's gonna carry on growing. It's the best plant in the world. I absolutely love it. It's in that tank, it's in that tank, it's in that tank, it's in ponds. Like, I love this. That and Vallisneria, it just excites the hell out of me, that stuff. See how excited I got there? I had to contain myself, swearing on camera and everything on YouTube. It's lucky I set this to adults, and it was past. If you start, any tank you start, if you get Elodea densa, which is Elodea is it the Brazilian one or the Canadian one? I think that's the Canadian one, which is technically another type of LOD, I can't remember the name of it. You get that in Ludwig, your Reppings and Vallisneria, you're golden. Like, your tank's bulletproof. Especially a Wallstad tank, or like a Father Fish tank, or any type of ecosystem. You get that in anything, it's going off. The River Don, like, even the river it come from sounds hard. It's probably, what's the other one called? There's one native to the UK and the leaves are smaller. But that is actually, like, LOD denser, this one is kind of similar to the one we're talking about. That LOD denser, the leaves are about that long on it. And the British on the straight, they're almost straight. But the one I think you're talking about is like really dark olive green, and the leaves are like little semicircles. I think that's the one is that the one you're talking about? Because I had that. That's what got me into the hobby, that and tadpoles. Like, I just remember there was an old lady up the road, she used to invite us in, she had this do you know what, like, is there any chance you could show me on Facebook or on my Facebook group or my Facebook page, or I don't know how you're going to, or I'm trying to think of it. Like, I'd love to see what it is, because as I say, like, there was this old lady, she had me in, she used to let us all in, she had these two ponds and they were connected underneath. I talk about this all the time, it like brings back a vivid memory. And one was basically a bog filter, it was all planted, the frogs lived in there, and they laid their eggs in there, and there was like a little concrete hole underground, or like probably like viscous clay pipe, to this bigger pond that was full of, like, it was basically like LOD denser, but it swim through, like all these tadpoles would swim through into this bigger pond. And she used to let us collect like a bit of the weed and throw that in, and then with the pond water and the, what do you call it, the LOD and the tadpoles. And I had this like 25, probably like a 12 litre tank with tadpoles in when I was about 6-7 years old. Within a week I went to my nan had me in my local fish shop buying me a goldfish, or 2 goldfish, and we used to watch, everyone tells you the same cliche story of washing pink gravel out with washing up liquid and stuff, but that's exactly the same thing happened to me. And there's only been a 3-year period where I haven't kept fish, or maybe 4 in total in the rest of the 30 years. But I've still had tanks, I've still owned tanks, knowing I was getting back into the hobby. But that's what got me into it, was that plant. And I suppose, like, if you put it in a pan and boil it down, like, so she was like, if you put this plant in your fish tank, in your little tank with your tadpoles, so there's all the microorganisms, so basically that is the start of an ecosystem. It's all nature, pond water, tadpoles, and it's mad because I always felt fish keeping was contrived, if you know what I mean, like having tanks was just kind of contrived compared to the way I'd kept these not goldfish, the tadpoles. And I remember being on a goldfish forum about 2005, Coco's Goldfish, like, it's one of my favourite resources and it's gone. It went last year, I think it was, and I was devastated when it went, because I've spent so many years of my life sharing so many pond projects and stuff. But they were all into, like, there was all pond keepers on there, and what they do is they put the goldfish outside in the summer and they bring them in the winter and they put them in a shed like this, or a greenhouse or something. But they bring these fish in, and what they do is they put all, like, the plants in pots with soil and a cap, and I think they got that from the Wallstad method, because that's what Diana Wallstad does. Or I don't know if it's like an old school trick that, but I remember like they were doing that, and they put them out in the pond in the summer, and in the winter they bring it back in with the fish, and I was like, wow, and I can have mud in my fish tank, and then I got that natural feeling again, and I love that feeling. Like once you've got like a few years in the hobby under your belt, you learn that putting fish outside in the atmosphere, I don't know what it is, but the whole dynamic of it changes. Like I remember seeing one of those winter fish tanks jammed packed with, yeah, like, do you know, another thing I love as well is that Japanese, got another buried shrimp up there, whoa babies. But I'm going to pick them, get some of them outside in the summer, the shrimp. Yeah, I love that Japanese thing, you know, where you get like, say you got like 2 big fish tanks, and then you drain that tank, take the goldfish out and put it in this tank, and then the next day you fill that back up with water and you move the goldfish out of this tank, put them in that tank with the plants, and everything goes in that. Like, you're just not getting parasites, are you, if you're doing that? It's just like that. I think that's cool, but I'm kind of going off like Japanese fish keeping, if I'm honest. Like I used to be bang into it, but like the likes of the fancy goldfish and Carabiner shrimp. The reason why is I feel like they're that obsessed with breeding things that they just, you think of Carabiner shrimp, like crystals and stuff like that, and you think of fancy goldfish, and you think of all the inbreeding problems that these species have because the Japanese have line bred them so hard, like inbred them so hard. They just, if you get a goldfish, like a bog standard goldfish, like how bulletproof are them fish? And then you get these fancy goldfish, and you only have to like, they just die for no reason, don't they? I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds on goldfish over the years, fancy goldfish, and it's disappointing when you spend £100, £150 on one goldfish, and then within a couple of months it's got swim bladder problems, and then everyone on the internet's like, well, this is how you treat swim bladder. It's not, it's structural. Like, their swim bladder is deformed because of the body shape. Arguably putting salt in will can temporarily rectify the situation because it changes the buoyancy of the totally agree. And I just want to point out, when I was into goldfish, fancy goldfish, you can see that they're not the same fancy, like even at the Ranchu and the Aranda that were the same as 20 years, they're not the same. The bodies have been shortened in the last 20 years, and the wen growth is like massive compared to, and it's a different shape than it was 20 years ago. Like, if I was good at drawing and I had the ability to, I'd draw you the body shape of an Aranda from when I was into it, like 20 years ago, 2004. And now, the body shape's so much more compact, and they're not even the worst fancy goldfish, are they? I'm just going to get a sip of my drink. They're not even like the most deformed goldfish, are they, either? It's, God, that's sweet. So I've got a shrimp there that's like, it looks chocolate. But that's put me off goldfish. Like, I was a massive fan of goldfish for years, and I just find that the problems are getting worse with them. I used to like them, but as I say, it only used to be like a little raised patch on the head. But now the whole head's this big, Like, that's what I'm saying. In the last 20 years, it's changed so much because it just. Well, it's called wen growth, isn't it? The cap. But it used to just be like a little cap, and now it's the whole face, the cheeks. I know they used to get a little bit of like, but now it's like they can't see, and they're all doing YouTube videos of surgery cutting. Like, it's fat, isn't it? And they're cutting their eyes so they can see. And I think, well, that's too far in my opinion. Like, I love wild species. If someone come along and said to me, you can have whatever type of tank you want and whatever type of fish you want, in some of those tanks would be pike, it would be perch, because I love native species. Well, it's like Asian arowana. That's another Japanese. They trim the barbels, which are the sensory things that, like, when if the water's cloudy, they can search through the substrate and look for worms and stuff. Bang, they've got it. They use their barbels and they surgically trim them to make them look more aesthetically pleasing. And I think, like, that's too far as well. Don't get me wrong, I love Japanese culture. Or the side of it I've been exposed to anyway. I know just a lot of Americans say 50k for a big platinum arowana. I like arowana, but I don't know. If someone gave me 50k and said you can only spend it on fish keeping, it seems Sims in the UK. I've never seen that, to be honest. But I've seen a platinum arowana, but I won't spend that much money on an arowana, because this is the thing I'm saying with the Japanese culture side of arowana and stuff. It's all about having that one perfect thing, isn't it? It's like goldfish, like the price of a goldfish. I'm gonna have a vape, guys. I hope you don't mind, but rather than Sims, it's a fish shop. What do they sell? I hope you're not offended by me vaping. It's just, I mean, KG Tropicals does it, doesn't he? So I'd never have dreamed of doing it if I hadn't seen KG Tropicals. It's just vaping on camera, so I think it's a bit. Well, what the Sims sell, if they sell them platinum, like, that's what I'm saying. It's my opinion towards vaping is I've tried packing and smoking for 20 years, and vaping got me off smoking, and now I'm going down the levels on the vape juice, which I never imagined that packing smoking. So everything from a wee nano. Scottish, we. So I could say I can, and me and you would understand that, but most of the rest of the world wouldn't. I don't know whether. What was that thing someone said to me about Scotland? If you ever want to get into a fight with someone from Scotland, call them a wee dafty. And I realised that's I've never realised, but like when I used to hang around with Scottish lads, it always went off when someone called someone a wee dafty. Obviously I'm from Merseyside and we've got a similar sense of humour, haven't we, the Scottish and Merseyside, so us from around here we always claim we're like Scouse, not English, don't we? So I think we have more in common with the likes of the Irish and the Scottish than we do with a lot of the English, to be fair. It's a strange old affair, isn't it? What else was there? Was something I wanted to get onto this live stream. I can't remember. East Coast, man. So what's everyone else's plans for the summer? My goal, my biggest goal, I want to try and get the channel to 1,000 subs this year. Get in a partnership program. Like I was thinking to myself, I'm here to get on with other fish keepers. Like, that's me. Like, I want to share my experiences. I'm not here to preach, because everyone's got their own nuggets of information. There's people who've set their first fish tank up today who are going to learn something off that fish tank in the next week, month, that I've never experienced. So I don't believe it's a hobby where you get better and better. You just learn different nuggets of information, and the longer you're in the hobby, the more nuggets of information you pick up. So I don't believe I'm here to teach people, and I wouldn't define myself as trying to inspire people. I'm trying to share my experience with people and learn from their experiences. And a lot of my YouTube channel seems to be other YouTubers who've got their own channel, which is kind of a sign that I'm picking up the type of people I want watching my content, or watching my content. I know a lot of YouTube, and it's so easy to do this. I think if you start making videos for like setting up a tank, and for people who are new, I think your channel will blow up dead fast, because that's what people are searching for. There's search terms I know now that go viral, but it attracts the type of people that I don't mind teaching people the basics. But I've done that for years on forums, if that makes sense. And then I think, well, so the aquarium shops are selling people all this stuff. Exactly. I always go on about, like, your water, like if you're doing like a dirted tank, your water, your substrate, everything is different to mine, and generally over a certain period of time it'll kind of balance out to be a similar type of thing. But everything's unique, and everyone's got unique experiences because of that. And just because you've been in the hobby, you don't level up as such. Like, bonsai's got a big influence on my thing. Like I was talking about before with like the wall stab method. Now in bonsai, when you first get a tree, you prune it, don't you, and you shape all its structure out, and that to me is like the initial styling of the tree. And then you put the tree outside for the summer, you water it, you fertilise it, and you give it 12 months in the sun. Your bonsai tree gets one insult a year, which means it gets one hard pruning or one repotting or something. One a year, one insult, your tree's low. Now if you think about the Wallstad method or an ecosystem, in your first year you set out the primary structure, like your stem plants and stuff will go mad while it's full of organics and CO2. And then eventually all that sort of stuff's going to die out. And then when you get to 12 months, like in bonsai, we revisit the tree after the first year. You do the secondary structure, don't you? You like, everything's grown that summer, you pull it in, tighten it up, and you start building your tree. Now I think that's what you should be doing with an ecosystem. Obviously, a lot of your plants are going to struggle in an ecosystem. But the likes of your rosettes, your Amazon swords, your crypts, stuff like that, heavy root feeders, obviously you're going to teach them to adapt to start eating out the water. So after your 12 months, you go back in, you revisit your tank. Anything that's not doing well, just get shut of it. And do you know what else you can do after 12 months? Like, I would never recommend putting epiphytes, Java fern, Anubias, Bucephalandra, anything like that that's got a rhizome. Crypts got a rhizome. I don't know whether I'm saying what I'm saying is right. I don't know whether crypts have got a rhizome, but they haven't, have they? But anything epiphyte, slow growing, don't put that in your ecosystem aquarium within the first 12 months, because it's just going to get algae on it, because the leaves are that slow growing. They're going to get algae. When you come back for your second siling, anything that's struggling, like stem plants, stuff like that, prune them out, take them out, cut them right down to the substrate. Don't forget they might bounce back, but if you've got like a big patch of, say, stems, I don't know why I'm talking again, I never touch, prune them right back if they're not doing well, put some wood in, glue some epiphytes on. When you revisit them after the first 12 months, once all that, like I said, like the analogy of rocket fuel has burnt out the system and everything's slowed down, that's your established Wallstad tank. and then you can put your slower growers in, and you can, you know, instead of thinking about, I need to do this week. Everyone, like, they want to grow plants in a way where they want to put a plant in the tank, and then they want to go make a cup of tea and come back, and they want to see growth. Now, what happens if that growth is there not tomorrow but in 12 months? You know, like in a CO2, like, that's another thing from bonsai. So a lot of people are smashing the bonsai trees with high nutrient fertilizers, aren't they? And the bonsai tree throws out all this growth. It's gone. Like, it's got all this vigorous growth, but all that green, healthy, vigorous growth, it's attracting green fly, white fly, it's attracting scale. It's just attracting all these things that just want to eat it because it's lush and it's nice. Whereas if you use the more balanced, subtle fertilizer and you grow your bonsai little by, like, you get little bits of growth every season. Like, them little bits of growth has got so much nutrition. Like the tree's so much healthier for it, and I think that's how we should, like, see our systems. You know, like CO2 and fert, like the EI dosing. Like, you smash the light on the tank, don't you, and you get your CO2 going, and you balance that, and then you EI dose, and then you do massive water changes. All that is getting your plants to grow at the highest end. But as soon as that CO2 tank's empty, your tank's off balance straight away, and you know, you're flushing all these ferts out the system constantly, trying to get this, like, little bit of growth. And I don't see the point, in my personal opinion, I don't see the point in putting all that money into cutting plants to put them in the bin. Now, in a couple of years when I'm retired and I haven't got much else to do apart from pot around my house or my fish room, then I'll have the time where I can play with my tank day by day. But, like, I'm looking at my tanks as I'm talking because it gives me inspiration to think about what I'm talking about. When I'm retired, that's when I can prune, like, visit me tanks, because obviously I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks set. Well, arguably I've got about 8, but I don't really class 25 litre tanks. If I can pick a tank up and empty it, I don't really class that as an aquarium. So see, it's like a little side project. So, but that's my thing. Like, I just think with my lifestyle at the moment, the low tech, letting it grow slowly but more, like, without that, you know, the where it's absorbed more micronutrients and it's growing slower. And I feel like that type of growth, like, that's what I learned from bonsai when I was studying bonsai. Like, I'll be honest, I don't know whether there's anyone's watched bonsai or they've studied bonsai, especially in the UK. But, like, who's the biggest person in the... So, say, like, George Farmer. I don't know whether everyone watching, like, when I got into bonsai for about 12 months. Like, it kind of was like, I'd moved and I sort of shut all my tanks down and was like, right, I need a new hobby now. Yeah, I used to find out with me reef tanks. Like, I'd get reef tanks going for like the SPS, you know, the stony polyp, the small polyp stony corals, like the really hard ones to keep. I'd buy them at, like, fingernail size, like that, and then I'd grow them out to, like, plates. And then in about 2 years the tank used to crash, and, like, I'd get all fed up, shut my tank down, start again. And then I went and spoke to, like, a really experienced, like, reef keeper, and he was like, that's why we've all got frag tanks. It's not to sell, but so we know our tank at some point is going to crash because we're smashing it with everything artificial, and we know at some point it's going to crash, and we've already got the corals and everything ready to reset the system once it does crash. I was like, hang on a minute, that's But I feel like once, like with the high-tech systems, I feel like you're pushing it that hard that, like, if a wheel comes off, you're on the motorway, you're doing 100, like your car's going something, like your tank's gonna like smash. Like once it's off balance, that's it, it's gone, I feel. Or it depends how much experience you've got, if you can catch it early. But maybe like your CO2 goes offline, like I just feel like with my lifestyle now, if my tank went off balance, I'd knacker it. Whereas the likes of an ecosystem where you set it up slowly, there's that guy George Farmer was talking about. In 28 years he's had the same tank, and I was chatting to that guy the other day on YouTube or Facebook, and he was like, it's not a Wallstad tank. And I was like, you don't think it's a Wallstad tank, but I do, and I'll tell you why I think it's a Wallstad tank. Because for 28 years you've let mulm build up on the bottom, and that's nutrient cycling, and it's basically all the principles of the Wallstad method he's doing. So just because he didn't start out with mud at the bottom, he started out with laterite, and which is a high CEC substrate which traps all the nutrients, which is the same as if you use like the likes of sphagnum moss, peat moss, or Irish peat moss. I'm sat on a bag of Irish peat moss in my shed because I can't put a chair anywhere because the whole shed is ready to dirt this tank. I'm just waiting on the cap, and I'm waiting for a sand cap for that one because I want to do like a Dustin's dirt. But that's what I was going to say. Like, you know, like George Farmer, and who's it, like the likes of Geordie Scaper, is it? Yeah, like I was like, but you don't understand. You're doing the nutrient cycling side of it. Like you're letting the mulm build up. You've got your gravel, your fine layer of gravel, and so like you've got a good open structure soil that you're letting the mulm build up on. So as the beneficial bacteria are breaking that down, releasing the nutrients and the CO2 into the water column, it's basically the principles of the Wallstad method in that tank. But that's, I was saying about, yeah, so imagine like the likes of Geordie Scaper and George Farmer. When I got into, like, I left the aquarium hobby for like 12 months, and I got into bonsai and I picked it up, like, because of like the standard I'm at. I don't want it to sound obnoxious or anything, but like because of the amount of experience I've got, that's the best way of putting it, in the hobby. Like I've got a certain level of where I should be in aquarium keeping. And I don't know how to explain it, but I think like once you got to a certain level of experience, like you want to operate at that level in the hobby. So you don't want to be a beginner in a different hobby. So I started off as a beginner in bonsai, and I absorbed all the information I could really quickly, and I was trying it, but within a few months Thomas, yeah, so this is what my analogy, it's like, I don't know how much of the analogy you picked up on, because I'm finding the participant, like the viewers are going up and down, like they're constantly bobbing about, so I don't know whether people are just clicking on another screen and checking updates or messages or something, they're coming back on, but so I don't know but what I'm saying is, with your Wallstad or any ecosystem aquarium, when you've dirted it, like it's tons of organics in this system at the beginning, and what you want to do is like your rosettes, yeah. So like I've got crypts, Amazon swords, crypts. They're all heavy rosette root feeders, and then when I dirt this, they're all going in. I've got stems over here. Get all them in for the first year, and let them burn out all the organics, and then the likes of what I found with my last Wallstad tank was Bacopa, Rotala, Ludwig here, so I'm talking from experience. Like all these stem plants, they shed 3/4 of the way up after, because I'm assuming the light was too low for them. But even when I ramped the light up, they still didn't. I pruned them, put them all back in, and I just found all my floating plants died after like 6-12 months. Like, I've posted a thing on the Wallstad group, Facebook group. If you Google Wallstad Facebook group, I've posted a load of links to like some interesting stuff, like the duckweed index. But yeah, that's what you want to do. Like, your stem plants will start crapping out on you, they'll start struggling, a lot of them. And if they're not going to survive, you may as well get shut of them, get a piece of wood in there, and then get your epiphytes in there. With the likes of your Java fern, your Anubias, your boosters, stuff that's going to appreciate the growing slower, like your swords and your crypts will enjoy the slower pace of a Wallstad tank if it's set up properly. Now, I was saying before, another trick with your ecosystem, if you start feeding your shrimp, snails, go blanch spinach, or go and pick yourself a load of nettles, not by hand, get some gloves, or I use my scissors and just trim them into. I'll take this out because we've got fields around here. I'll take my little dosing thing out and I'll just trim a load of stinging nettles, and I'll tell you why stinging nettles, because they're the best, most nutritious thing. They've got tons of I don't know whether you actually, I'm telling you all these things and I haven't defined what I mean. Like, does everyone understand micro and macronutrients? Because your macronutrients are, I'm going to lean on here like I'm dead cool. Your macronutrients are nitrogen, potassium, and no, that's in the wrong order. So N is for nitrogen, which is ammonia, nitrite, nitrate. Then you've got your P, which is your phosphates, which everyone in reef keeping is terrified of, and hardly anyone in aquarium keeping, freshwater side of things, unless they've got plants. They don't know anything about phosphate for some reason, even though like it's really like phosphate's got its own cycle in your tank apparently. I've never looked into it that much. I just know if it's in there, I want something that'll eat it. And then potassium is your K, and then you've got your micronutrients, which your GH of your tank is made up of magnesium and calcium, and then you need bicarbonate buffer, don't you, which is your KH, and it's a combination of bicarbs and carbs. And rainwater aquariums, you know, before we were talking about these 3 plants, and I was saying that hard, they'll just nail your KH if there's no CO2 in the water. Like, they'll be like, algae has gone nothing on me, I'm not hard, I'm going to make my own CO2 out of your KH. And that's what it does, it just converts, like it's in the book, the Wallstad method. It just takes your KH out the water and creates its own carbon source. Instead of using CO2, it's carbon dioxide. It just uses your KH. So that's what I'm saying. If you feed, they're your micro, and then there's obviously more. Is it the Wallstad Naturally Planted Tank Facebook group? That's the one. I absolutely love that group. Do me a favour, if you join, tell them Aquatic Fanatics, give them a shout out. Was basically just banging on about them all night, showing them loads of love for an hour and 40 minutes so far of his live stream, just like showing pure love to this group. We're not allowed to say Father Fish over there though, it's a naughty word, don't mention him. Because it's all about Wallstad. Over there, we love Dan. So it's the Wallstad method, I've seen someone say, and the Father Fish fad. If we talk about it in the group, and we're not really allowed to talk about it. Where was I up to? I'm getting old and my memory's gone, so yeah, that's what I was talking. Yeah, so I was talking about micronutrients. No, so all these micronutrients, if you feed, yeah, I'm going on about the same thing twice, but I want everyone to take these important bits of information away. So if you feed your shrimp blanched nettles, blanched spinach, blanched cucumber, courgette, they're full of calcium and magnesium, which are your GH, which are micronutrients that your plants love. They're full of potassium, which is one of your big 3 macronutrients. Yeah, in fact, right. The TNC complete, can you see that? I'm having a cheeky vape while you're looking at that. I can't get it to focus on, but that's your NPK, and it'll tell, and there's all your micronutrients, but that's TNC complete, which everyone. And here's another trick, I'll always bang on about this, rhizotonic. People who grow, I'm assuming the people who are watching now weren't watching before, by the way, except for rainwater aquariums, or aquarium. My group is Aquatic Fanatics UK. I'm trying to, this year, build a group. I'm trying to build a Facebook group, Facebook page, where I share loads of my Facebook page. I'm trying to do the Facebook challenge on there, because it keeps giving me challenges to complete every week, and it's like, you need 10 followers, you need to put out like 5 reels. So I put out all the reels, and I try and share stuff that I love, like Premier Aquatics. They've got a website, and I'm ordering all my plants off Premier Aquatics because they do aquadip plants, and like the size of an aquadip plant compared to a tropica plant's amazing. But like, I don't plug myself enough, do I? So I've got my Instagram, which has been going since about 2018. That's got Wallstad tanks from when I started. It's got my Frontosa. It's got my 400 litre tank. That's coming to live here soon, which is going to be a blackwater tank. I'm going to put my Manica Peru in there, and the L333 plecos. I'm going to have an active sub. It's going to be a Wallstad blackwater tank. I'll tell you why, because I'm going to put moss peat in there to soften it, botanicals. I'm going to sand, and it's going to be basically, it's going to be a blackwater Wallstad tank basically, and everyone's going to be like, but one of them doesn't exist. But then a Wallstad herself says, play with it, play with my method. I'm not just telling you this stuff and then that's what you have to do, just play with it. Which makes me think, well, if I could play with the Wallstad method, and if I could give the next generation of fish keepers something on top of the Wallstad method, it would be aquascaping with the Wallstad method. And maybe that philosophy I've got of the Japanese, you know, with your bonsai, like 1 insult a year to your ecosystem, knock it out of balance once and then bring it back into balance once a year. I've seen like hybrid methods where people use CO2 and stuff. Dustin from Dustin's Fish Tank basically does dirted tanks like the Wallstad method, but he injects CO2 into his tank, doesn't he? He smashes them with metal halides, which metal halides blow the socks off any sort of LEDs you can get, by the way. I don't know whether everyone's heard of PAR, but like they just, like, you get like T5 lights and stuff, yeah, but these were, but I think that's if I could pass something on to the next generation of fish keepers at the end of all my experience, it would be something about aquascaping a dirted tank. And you know, like MD Fish Tanks basically does it, doesn't he? Like, his tanks are all like dirted, or most of them all. I haven't caught up with MD, and I was like, when I was looking at my analytics, I was like, wow, all my subscribers watch MD Fish Tanks, and I was like, so I must have the same. And I was like, hang on a minute, everyone watches MD Fish Tanks. Of course, there are people who watch me, watch MD. Everyone watches MD and his little mannerism, like. And he didn't start in the hobby that long ago, you know. I'm sure it was about 5 years, 6 years. When he started this channel, he just started in the hobby. And like, look where he is now. He's like, if Joey Mullen's the king of DIY, like MD Fish Tanks is the king of aquascaping. I know he's technically, you could argue he's not. It's someone like George Farmer or someone like that. But you look at the fan base MD Fish Tanks has got. MD Fish Tank is maybe the biggest in the UK. He's by far the biggest in the UK, isn't he? I think he's on to nearly 1 million subs. I'm sure he's one of the biggest aquarium channels that there is. That young girl, is it Aquarium Life or something? I mean, she does what made Joey Mullen famous, with a Mr. Beast editing style, and she's a young lady, which a lot of fish keepers tend to respond to them. If you go on Instagram and stuff, like young ladies in the hobby, like they fly on social media, don't they? And like there's loads of young girls doing reef keeping, and they fly. Like I don't know what it is, but like the hobby really responds to it. Maybe they're just like rooting for them. I don't know. But her channels, but I think hers is the biggest. But I think MD's well the biggest in the UK, and arguably, I know he doesn't do that Japanese Takashi Omano style, but between us, I'm not live on YouTube or anything. Between us, I don't like all the like the aquascaping that everyone's doing at the moment. I'm bored of seeing it. Like, the reason why Takashi Omano was so good is because he came up with his own philosophy on what a planted tank should look like, and he toyed with it. And you can't expect to be at the top of your game if you're just copying someone else who come before you. And that's what everyone. I'm an aquascaper. I'm entering aquascaping competitions, and I'm putting together. I'm working off the rules that you are. Like was it Tom Barr? Or no, it was the other aquascaper who just put a bonsai tree in a fish tank. And he won the aquascape, and then the whole hobby wanted the bonsai tree. Well, it wasn't really a bonsai tree, was it? It was just bits of wood glued together. It was a caricature of a bonsai tree using moss as the pads. Which we could apply loads of bonsai techniques to the hobby. If I'm honest, like, have we got any wood around me? I've got bonsai tools everywhere. Right, so you buy a piece of wood from the shop, don't you? Right, and I could just talk for hours. Like, no, I'm in the zone. So you get a piece of wood from the shop, don't you? And like you can see the saw mark. Like you want all your stuff to be natural, don't you? If you get these gin pliers, these are called, for like you can strip, if you know anything about bond, so you can get, so where the saw mark is, if you catch it like that, maybe if you split it, the wood first down the grain, and then you catch it like that, squeeze as tight as you can and twist, like backwards, pull all the wood backwards. If you do that at the top and then you do it at the bottom, then it takes it to a point, and then you can do it, and you just spray it, and instead of having this chop mark, if you go on Instagram right now and look at aquascaping, so everyone spends all this money, hundreds of pounds, on rock. Well, in fact, dirty little secret, the people who are putting all these tanks together, which takes me back to what I was saying before, the people who are putting all these tanks together, they're getting all stuff for nothing, aren't they? Like the likes of Tropica, sponsoring them, and they're all getting like hundreds of pounds of plants for nothing. And then they're knocking our precious little ecosystem, natural aquarium method. They're knocking it. But these tanks only exist for 12 months and then strip down. Half of them tanks crash, by the way, in the first year. They never balance. But no one ever talks about that. They always go, well, your wall starts full of algae. Yeah, because it's not balanced yet. Because it's full of rocket fuel. Like, it's off to the moon. Like, once all these nutrients are burnt out, then we're golden. That's when the wall stab method starts, and then we can go in and do our second, or that's basically when you can go in. You can just in your first year let it go, and then come in your second year. I'm looking down here constantly because I'm visually, in my mind, I'm working on the tank and I'm talking about it. So in your second year, then you can go in and put some wood in. Do you know what I mean? Whereas most aquascape, and you go on, but it's inherently flawed because you run out of nutrients in the substrate. Yeah, you do, but you feed your fish, and then you use that group I was talking about before. You use the duckweed index. If your duckweed's starting to look a bit like washed out, yellow, like it's struggling, you need to feed your fish a bit more. And if you fish it, every time I look at this tank, I see something. There's peppermint bristlenose plecos on the glass. I never see them, and now they're out, and they're absolutely stunning. They're only about that big. I want to breed them, but I think they eat all my plants. I don't mind. You can eat me they can eat me apongiatons and me lilies, my favourite plants, but I don't mind. Because they're cheeky little rascals. I can't remember what I was saying now because that caught my attention. Let me know what I was saying, guys. In 45 seconds it'll pop up. If you want me to carry on from there. Oh yeah, I was talking about so yeah, if your duckweed's starting to, maybe your fish load, you're not feeding heavy enough. And do you know what will, do you know what, if your fish have grown up and they're adults in your tank and you're not feeding heavily enough, treat yourself to a new fish, because then you'll naturally feed more, and then your nutrients, you'll get more CO2 from the fish breathing, and you'll put more food in, which will turn into more fertiliser, and that's how we balance our tanks, isn't it? So that's, see our little tweak. So you could say, well, okay, this year, for my first year, I've got my fish in, and then you prune, that's your insult for the year, get some wood in. Now the wood's going to have organics on, they're going to break down, aren't they? And then you put your epiphytes in, stuff that's going to appreciate growing slower. And I don't know why my latest video didn't do too well, but I've got a, what you call it on there, I got the Hygge light, and the video, like the click-through rate and the watch time is like Mr. Beast level. Like it's like 66% watched all the way through. Click-through rate was at 50% yesterday, but YouTube hasn't pushed it to anyone. And I'm like sulking, thinking, well, why's my video flopped? And then I realised it's probably because of what I said in the video. Like literally I summed up why it wouldn't do well, because no one is talking. Everyone is talking about ecosystems. You notice no one touches on the lights. You're live. Did I just go offline then? Don't know what happened there. Let's check my internet connection. Am I still there, guys? Let me know. 844. It's saying I've got internet, but it's just reconnect. It just said it was reconnected. I've never had that before. But no one talks about light now. It shouldn't just be the high-techers who need high-tech light. We need to be able to dial our lights down. And, you know, we deserve. And here's another thing, like everyone goes, I don't understand why it's called high-tech and low-tech. Or maybe it doesn't mean technology, maybe it means technique. Has anyone ever considered that? Like, it's just me. Because I'm like, well, so if you're going to keep all these stem plants with CO2, high lights, then there's a lot of technique that goes into that, isn't it? You've got to ramp your lights up, then you've got to dial your CO2 in, and then you've got to EL dose. So you've got to mix your micro and macro nutrients and dose the tank, micro one day, macro the next day. Then you do a water change. Us low-techers, especially if you're using soil, just put another fish in, leave it for 12 months, do water change. I do one month this month, I do one next month, who knows? Like, it's amazing, isn't it? That suits my lifestyle with 12-hour shifts, doing night shifts. If I accidentally miss a water change this month, who's going to notice? I don't, the fish don't. Is there anything I've talked about that you want me to touch on? Anything didn't elaborate on? There was the duckweed index. Yeah, but as I say, that's, if you think about it logically, right, you've got your plants in your tank that are limited by CO2 and nutrients. Arguably, CO2 is the biggest. I'm looking to see if anyone wants me to touch on anything, because we're coming up to like 2 hours now I've been talking. Which I really appreciate people hanging around for. So if we think about this logically, right, so you plant in the water, you've got light, you've got CO2 and nutrients, haven't you? I don't know whether it was your comp or my online thing, by the way, because it said I was reconnecting. So if you got that, so then you got your aerial advantage, which is touched on in the wall stab method, and we can use this as our test kit. And I'll tell you why, because the aerial advantage, not only has it got access, like it's close to light, and it's got atmospheric CO2, so it can absorb all the nutrients out of your water column. You can also use logic, and that's the thing I shared. So if your plants are struggling, in your tank, you don't know whether it's CO2 or nutrition, really, do you? It could be either. But if your duckweed or whatever floating plant is struggling, you know it's got to be nutrition. So you know your CO2 is fine, and so you can figure out what's going on with your plants by the law of deduction. And that's something as low techers. That's why our way of testing the water, just by putting a few floating plants in, we can deduct whether it's the light, the CO2, or the nutrition that's lacking. And that's the duckweed index in a nutshell. Now, if you've got water splashing at the surface, it's letting CO2 out. It's letting oxygen in and CO2 out. Unless your tank is low on CO2, and then it'll reach an equilibrium, so then it turns into a vacuum and it pulls CO2 in. If your plants are photosynthesizing and the CO2 level in your tank's gone low, that's when. And here's another cool thing for you, touching on that. If you've got a tank that's wider and longer than it is taller, the CO2 will diffuse into the tank quicker. And we've all got these tall tanks. But if you turn that on its side and have the tank that way, where it's like, say that's 40 centimetres high and 30 centimetres, I'm just guessing, by 100 centimetres. If you turned it the other way, the amount of gas exchange you can get at the surface is like exponentially more. Excuse me. Because if you draw a line at like, what's that, like 45-degree angle, the way I look at it is, if you draw a line at 40, if that can't touch the floor, then everything below that 45-degree angle isn't getting a straight shot of CO2, is it? Like light, it's having to, like, the spread's going outwards then, because it's like the inverse squared law, isn't it? So if your tank is lower than it is wide, then you get it, like, it can diffuse in all directions. That's I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that's the way I look at it. But it is definitely right about if your tank's lower than it is wide, because there's a post on George Farmer's website. But that's actually talking about George Farmer, like the likes of MD Fish Tanks. I went off on a tangent. I was out the hobby and I was banging to bonsai, and I've been invited, because I'd like learned so much in a year and I was like so absorbed in it, I've been invited to all these like I've been to like bonsai expositions and all sorts, and I was going, like, being invited to these workshops, and then I was sat in a room having my breakfast, just chatting away to someone who's the equivalent of George Farmer and like MD Fish Tanks. I was in a room with people like this, and like that's who I was hanging around with in the hobby. It was like, don't know whether anyone knows any bonsai hobbyists, but you can Google them right now. I was sat in a room with Peter Warren and Harry Harrington, which are the equivalent of the likes of George Farmer. And I was like, it was all like, wow, I'm like with these people who are like renowned in the bonsai hobby, and like everyone from around the world, I'd love to meet them. And I'm just sat there, casually eating my breakfast, talking away with them, and I thought, This isn't what I should be. I should be doing that. Before match of the day. Yeah, man. I support Tranmere, so no match of the day for me. I'll just keep talking. Yeah, so like these people, like these famous aquascapers, like I was sat in a room with these like famous bonsai artists, like people from all around the world want to meet, and I'm just sat there, and I thought that this is what I should be doing in the aquarium hobby. And then I kind of thought, well, FA Cup, you're out already, mate. They just let us have a game for a laugh in the FA Cup, and that's it. We're done. We always go out on our first match. I'm sure we do. Do you know what? I haven't even been paying attention. I used to be season ticket holder, but it was in that moment, sat with these people, talking to them, and I thought I should be doing this with people in the aquarium hobby. And that's when I come. Within a week, I think I'd set all the tanks up back up, and I was like, right, I want to get this involved with the aquarium hobby because that's my passion. That's what I love. That's like I've spent my whole life. That's my life's work. If I could do it like a Japanese bonsai apprentice in aquascaping or fish keeping, I'd do it tomorrow. Like, I'd love to work in a fish shop, but because they say you learn in a year in a fish shop what you learn in 10 years in the hobby, which means I've probably worked in a fish shop for about 3 years, which I don't believe that, because actually I've heard that saying a few times. It wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't inspiring. It was kind of the opposite, like, for me, because I was thinking someone else should be sat here with people that they've been influenced by for so many years. I haven't been influenced by them. I'm just sat there casually talking. Billy Bob Blogs. Hello, Billy Bob Blogs. Judge Farmer is amazing. Like, he's got ADHD hyperfocus, hasn't he? Which is a secret weapon that I've got. Which means if you're interested in something, you're really, really interested in it, and you can not sleep for days, like researching it and stuff. That's when most people are like scrolling away on Facebook or YouTube or on the internet. People with ADHD tend to micro-learn. They'll be on a forum reading about something, like they'll get obsessed with something, like, I don't know, like CO2 or nutrient dosing or aquascaping, and they'll just micro-learn, like, constantly. They'll have like 25 tabs open, and they'll just do it for days, and then the dopamine level in the brain will drop, and they'll be like, I'm bored of that now. But then something else will catch their attention, and they'll be like, I'm not sleeping for 5 days, I'm not going to work, I'm not bathing, I'm learning about how to grow roots in an epongeton, and that's and that's why I've come to know what I know. Like a lot of YouTube channels that are massive, they've spent 10 years, 15 years talking about the nitrogen cycle over and over and over again, and they put a clickbait title on the video, and then they just talk about the nitrogen cycle again, and they've got 1100 videos talking about the nitrogen cycle, and they don't even go into any depth on the nitrogen cycle. They go microstoma, microbacter grow, and that one eats ammonia, and that one eats nitrite. It's like, well, actually, mate, you've got African cichlids. You don't even have to worry about nitrite. Put salt in there, and the salt stops in alkaline water. Salt stops the nitrite from getting in the fish's gills anyway, so it doesn't do anything to them. Like, and we've got like the likes of Prime. You dose that every day. It's only the ammonia you need to worry about. Like, unless you're keeping the likes of discus with like a really sensitive acidic water, and then even then, arguably, I know discus is really sensitive, but if you get your thing acidic, ammonia becomes ammonium, which is organic. It's not NO3, it's NO4. So even that's not that. It's not as toxic as. So like, they don't even talk about it in that depth, and they don't say, well, actually, so your GH. I've never heard anyone of all these people go, your GH is made up of calcium, magnesium. So a rough thing I can explain, like, so I don't know why I'm talking about this. I can't remember. Like, I've gone off on an ADHD tangent. Oh, that's what I was talking about, ironically. So you got like 500 parts per million of calcium, you got 1500 parts per million of magnesium, and you got about 10 degrees of carbonate hardness at K8. That's a balance. And then if you go down from that, that's like at saltwater level, where it's like you know your salt water is literally made up of magnesium, calcium, salts, and your carbonate and bicarbonate things. So when you lower them down into fresh water, there's another female shrimp that's buried, like, and she is buried. I'm going to end up with about 5,000 shrimp out there in the summer. But that's what I'm saying, these people talk about that and they don't even say, well, actually, as your nitrobacter or your nitrosomus, which there's also nitrospira, nitrosospira, nitrosinomus, there's nitrospira, and they just talk about nitrosinomus and nitrobacter, and there's tons of them. There's spira, sospira, and the stuff they sell in bacteria in the bottles. You're not really doing water changes. Stick to Wallstad, mate. I feel like, I don't want to knock the guy, but I feel like he's dragging all these people into the hobby for the fish. Here's the thing, right? How can I put it politely? So, you know when you see Diana Wallstad, like, you can go on KG Tropicals videos and watch, and every time she goes to a demonstration, she's carrying bowls around with her, like tons of bowls, and she's got all Wallstad bowls, and she's breeding guppies in, and shrimp, by the way, which you can't use these no water change system, or I'm not doing any water change, you know, these systems, you don't see Father Fish with any of these bowls, do you? Showing you how his method works. Just stands out to me, and I've picked apart a lot of what Father Fish teaches. And the thing that got me is I'm experienced enough where if you come on now and you ask me a question and I don't know the answer to it, I'm comfortable to say to, like, if there was 40, 50, 100 people on here now, I'd say, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that question, but I understand enough the hobby where if you can't figure out what the answer is, I'll go and have a read, and you can message me on my Facebook page or group and I'll tell you the answer. Yeah, I'm gonna vape, guys. I hope no one's offended by me vaping. But like I say, if KG Tropicals allows a vape on their thing and they've got like hundreds of viewers, then it allowed me to vape on mine in my mind. So it keeps me here talking to you guys longer, and there's nothing I'd rather do on a Saturday night than sit talking to other fish keepers. I don't drink. I spend all my spare money on setting up water tanks. I'm not knocking Father Fish, but I'm worried that he's dragging a lot of people into the hobby and then he's going to let them down. Like, you know, I was talking about with the Wallstad method, you're going to. So here's the thing, like we were talking then about, he says, put a sponge filter in your ecosystem, and I've just explained to you why that's a bad idea, because all the CO2, the precious CO2 you're getting out of your substrate, you're gassing it off out the system by creating turbulent flow. I feel like, sorry about the traffic, boy racer going past, but there's so many things, and I think rather than for the fish reinventing the wheel of the Wallstad or the nitrogen cycle, excuse me, I want to add to it. Like, you know, I'd love. I'm not saying I'm on the same level as Father Fish. I feel like, if I'm honest, I feel like my understanding of the Wallstad method and ecosystems, I understand the processes in a bit more detail. There's a lot of stuff that he says where, like, I'm comfortable to say to you guys, I don't know the answer to that, but I know enough about the hobby to be able to go and read it about it and come back to you with an answer if you're struggling to understand it, if you've researched it and you don't understand it. Like I'm good at making analogies up, like the rocket one. So like in the first 12 months of your Wallstad tank, it's like a rocket, it's full of jet fuel and it's off. And you need to burn all that out the system. Now you can remineralise it, which is basically putting it outside, letting it get wet and dry. Or you can stick it in a vat, your soil. And Father Fish also, he recommends this really potent mix. And I'm like, you don't really need that really potent mix because you want it to chill out. And then you want to be feeding your fish enough nutrition so they're gassing off CO2 and they're releasing enough nutrition into the water, and that's what I was talking about with the spinach and courgette, nettles, cucumber. All these are full of your potassium, which are your big three. You've got nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, and then you've got all your micronutrients, which are the likes of your magnesium, calcium, boron, manganese. There's that one I can never pronounce, that's like no one can pronounce. They're all in your fruit and veg. If you give them to your shrimp and your snails and they eat that, then they take little fertiliser poops around your tank and the fertiliser in your tank, and that's releasing CO2 and all their micronutrients in a chelated form, by the way. They're already... Do you guys understand... Do you guys understand Brownian motion? Father Fish talks about Brownian motion, and his argument for having a 2-inch cap of sand on top of your substrate says Brownian motion. Do you guys understand Brownian motion? And do you understand chelation? Because I can give you analogies so you'll understand them perfectly straight away. I've studied systems biology I've studied neuroscience at master's degree level, so at that level, yes, as Father Fish explains what? Chelation or Brownian motion? Because obviously, as I say, I've studied systems biology because I've studied neuroscience. Now, everything organic, whether it be plants, animals, at that level, they're all made up of similar things. There's only so many structures you can make like with atoms, molecules. That most Brownian motion's right. So he says the reason why you need 2 inches of sand on top of an inch of soil is because of Brownian motion. Now Brownian motion is a measure of how excited a molecule is, like positive or negative charged anions, cations, ions. So basically we all studied like electrons, neutrons, they all have a little microcharge, don't they, and they all vibrate. So a Brownian motion is a measure of that, basically, these little things moving in water. So your sand and soil are mixing because of Brownian motion. And the example he showed when he zoomed in showed sand dropping through the soil. It didn't show soil coming up through the sand, it showed sand dropping into soil gaps. And he also said the dirt will come up into the substrate, and I agree, totally agree. In that thing he showed, there was dirt coming up through the sand. Oh mate, it's Easy Fish Tanks, how we doing? Good to see you, mate. I've been I haven't seen you all week on the old YouTube. I didn't get a notification of a video coming out. I was looking out for it all week, I'm sure. I think I've seen a few shorts, but I don't think I've seen a video come out. I've been... There was you, and what else was I looking for? Is it... Can I ever pronounce his name? Mexi Cali Fishkeeper. It's because of my accent I cannot pronounce. And then Lush and Salty Aquariums. I've been looking out for him this week as well. Like, there was a young lad who was here last week on my live stream who he's put out a video that's flown, and I was hoping he was going to be live. Shrimply or something. I was hoping he was going to be on me live because he's put a video out. Well, bearing in mind he's got about 30-40 subs, and his video that he put out the other day, within an hour it had 81 views on it. When I had 40 subs, I was lucky to get 25 views in 2 weeks, and I was like, mate, that video's going to go viral. And then I checked in on it today, and it was at like 1,200, views, I think. And I was like, that over the next 2 weeks it's gonna go, isn't it? So I said to him on it, mate, whatever, there's something worked in that video. Whatever's worked in that video, that's what your channel, every video you do on YouTube needs to be whatever worked in that video. But I was talking about Brownie in Motion, and I was saying about the example of, in that video that Father Fish showed, yeah, there it was coming up through the gravel. It's because goldfish were digging in the gravel, so that's not Brownie in Motion, that's goldfish digging in gravel. They're looking for food. That's not Brownie in Motion. Chelation as well is another buzzword, right? So if you get something that's inorganic, here's an analogy. You get something that's inorganic, you know, like when your dog's not well, you take it to the vet. So the dog gives you a pill to give to your dog, medicine, tablet, and you're like, my dog is not going to take, there's no way I'm going to get, so you have that bright idea, don't you? If I wrap it in ham and I give it to my dog's going to eat it. Well, your plants aren't going to absorb inorganic iron, but if you wrap them up in ham, if you wrap them up in a little organic packet, then your plants will eat it, just like your dog will take your tablet. And that's a simple analogy for explaining how chelation works. Mum will work its way down. Yes, it's the whole principle of nutrient cycling in the Wallstad method, and why we use a 4 mil grain, because mum works its way down. It doesn't go down and then, because it's called the 5 fish method, come back up. It goes down, and it goes down, and in the top layer of your soil is highly anoxic. So I lost my train of thought now. So yeah, so it doesn't go down and come back up. It goes down, and that's one of the reasons why we have them pockets in the Wallstad method, the book Ecology of the Planted Aquarium. That's how it explains it. I've been live for 2.5 hours almost. I need to wrap this up soon. But I thought, like, I'd try and give you a couple of analogies to explain these buzzwords that are going around at the moment, which no one's mentioning: nutrient cycling, gas exchange, metabolism, photosynthesis, which no one even talks about lights when it comes to ecosystem, do they? Like, when you look at it, no one's like, well, no one's talking about par or Kelvin or basic lighting things. So we're all just using buzzwords, aren't we? Is that to make the sound better or more intelligent? I don't know. But it just seems to be on all. It seems to be all over YouTube at the moment using buzzwords. But we could be putting it like I'm seeing so many buried trim. Does anyone else get excited by buried trim? Like, is it like when you were for me, seeing a buried female just like past you and like it's got loads of little buried green eggs. That's like waking up and seeing the Millennium Falcon and Optimus Prime under your Christmas tree on Christmas morning when you were like 10. And then I've got my blue dream shrimp I'm looking at here that they've just gone in today. And I say, if you want to breed shrimp, my advice is to put them in a big tank and just feed them. Like Mark's shrimp tanks, put a pleco in, they throw tons of pleco, throw out tons of waste that they eat, and the shrimp, it's just pure biofilm, isn't it? It's just going to start breaking down straight away as soon as the plecos are pooped. You can throw bloodworm in there, full of protein for them, that gets them buried, and then nettles, courgette, cucumber. There's like tons of veg, but they're the ones I go to. Spinach, blanch them, get them in. It's full of calcium, magnesium. The calcium makes your snails. What's this going on here? Why is it saying it's held for review? Buried shrimp, like a collection of anal nuts. Gotta hide that, it's family friendly. Sorry. Who's the other moderator? I keep getting this message saying that another moderator's dealt with it. Didn't realise I had moderators. One day I'm going to play with all these buttons across the bottom. I'm vaping, guys. If KT Tropical's allowed to vape, I'm going to vape. But I'll keep apologising for vaping. It's quite. He's Scottish. That's how Scottish people talk to each other. Like, and people where I live. I suppose we all have industrial language, don't we, in our real lives? But as I say, that stuff, can of rhizotonic, for setting up your wall stab method tank or ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, it'll just tell you what it does. You dose this stuff in and your plants start throwing roots out. Your stem plants will throw roots out from every node. They'll be like, there's your roots, and you're just like ahead straight away. I'll never stop talking about Canna Rhizotonic. It's organic. It's an algae and seaweed hydrolase, which everyone's heard of seaweed extract, haven't you? Like where you might not have. So let me explain. You get some rainwater, you get seaweed, you put it in there. You put it somewhere the furthest away from anywhere, because it stinks. It's got the worst smell ever. If you water your plants, say you put fertiliser on your plants and you water it, you know what happens? It kicks off a like reaction in the so it starts processing the nutrients straight away. It's a decomposer or whatever they call it. I don't think the term's decomposer, but I know what a decomposer. I can't remember. An activator. They call it an activator, don't they? Like urine. Like people used to talk about weeing on the compost heaps because urine's an activator. So is that. But it's full of vitamin B6, B12. Like let's actually, instead of making it up while it's in front of me. Well, apparently it's in French. So, I can't speak French. Parlez-vous anglais, s'il vous plaît? Like, I don't speak French. I was just about to tell you what it's got in it. I was like, well, the ingredient list is here. The ingredient list is in French. Damn dodgy YouTube. Not YouTube. Amazon. So, yeah. But it's so like, I'll never stop banging on about it because I'll tell you what it seems to do as well. Rhizome plants explode. Like, I know, I know they do anyway, but I put Phalasneria in there and I was dosing it, and within a week, maybe 2 weeks, there was like 10 runners off it, like all the way along the thing, and I stopped dosing it and they slowed right down. And I've started dosing it again to where dark Crenum natans throwing roots out already, and then the Crenum calamastratum, it's got tons of roots on it. Everything, as soon as I put that canner in, they just throw roots. So it's I just find it amazing for getting stuff going. That tickled me, that. Like, there's the likes of I've got any examples. Do you know what I had? I've done loads of maintenance in it. I had a load of floating Ludwigia repens in the tank, and I'm trying to find if I've got any hanging right here. So what I've been doing is I've been floating this Ludwigia repens, right. Here it is. So I've just been floating that on the top of the tank, and all this is sprouted like this week, but it's throwing out. Like, yeah, I'll just show you off camera because you can see down here, can't you? You see all the roots? It just throws, like they just throw out that. Like, this had nothing on it the other day. It had nothing at all on it, and now it's got like tons of roots on it, and I just leave them floating, and I put that down to the rhizotonic. What size dose? I dose what it says on the bottle. I think it's a dose to the same look, like, I don't know whether it'll focus on that if it's up the screen. I'm trying to get it, but it's just all root, and I dose the same as I dose TNC Complete, but I don't do. I just dose the recommended dose it says to mix up in a watering can. It says on the instructions, which I call them destructions, because every time I follow instructions it always goes wrong. But if I just wing it, it seems to work. But this one's like, TNC Complete is like 1 mil per 10 litres. I think I was doing something similar to that with that. In fact, I've been dosing that tank's 200 litres, I've been putting about 20 mil in there, I've been putting like 30 mil in there, and then or 15 in there, or 18, because that's 180 litres. So, but I don't gauge it exact, I just smash them in when I come in. But as I say, they just seem to throw tons of roots. Like, I had pothos, you know pothos, I just had this stem because it died on me, the pothos, and I put it in this tank, and I was dosing the tank with I wish I could show you actually, because I've got Ludwigia repens about that long, and on every node there's roots flying out of it. And I'm not just making this up. If you go onto Harry Harrington's bonsai website and look at he's got bonsai trees. I think they are hawthorn, which are like notoriously difficult to get them to root. When you dig, like, they dig them up out the fields, don't they? They call it yamadori. So they go out and they dig it all up, like, and it'll have no roots, you know, because you, like, when you dig a tree up, you cut all the roots, and you just take a stump with a bit of fine root, and then they use this stuff. But the likes of, and here's another thing, is remind me to talk about sphagnum moss peat and sphagnum moss in a minute when I finish talking about this. Like, so they throw what you call it out. They're notoriously difficult to get rooted in a bonsai pot when you first dig them up. There's these Yamadori, and he's got a picture of hawthorn, and it's throwing aerial roots out of the trunk, the old wood of the tree, above the soil line. It's throwing out, what are they called? So you've got structural roots on a tree, you've got secondary roots, and then you've got the fine feeder roots, which are tertiary or celia. They're called, they come out from above, adventitious roots they're called. That's what they're throwing out, adventitious roots. They're just looking for moisture in the environment and nutrition. But that pothos anyway, remind me now what I was going to talk about, because I forgot. But that pothos had no leaves, no roots on it. It was just a stem. Put it in there, it's got like tons of roots. I was going to talk about sphagnum moss peat, wasn't I? Well, Peter Chan, bonsai artist. Sphagnum moss and sphagnum moss peat, they've got some sort of property in them. So like when a tree is dying and all its foliage is dying, you come up with this thing called the Peter Chan trick, the sphagnum moss trick. You can Google all this, the stuff I'm telling you. I don't expect you to believe me at face value. Like, I expect you to at least be like, well, is he telling the truth here? And not only is peat moss, which is what I'm sat on, got a high cation exchange capacity, so it's always going to pull food into the roots. It's got this thing where, like, Peter Chan would get bonsai trees in his nursery. He'd get them sent to him because they were on the way out, and he'd plant them into pure sphagnum moss, and within like a few months there'd be roots coming out the side of the tray that he planted them in, because it just stimulates growth. And this is another thing I feel like we should be adding to our, what do you call it, our little repertoire of, it's something I want to experiment with, to see what we can do. Because like in his bonsai soil mixer he uses sphagnum moss peat, he uses akadama, he uses grit. I've got grit, I've got like tons of ingredients in it. Akadama, like lava rock. Under my bum I've got moss peat, I've got loam, I've got Miracle Grow or organic stuff outside, I've got molar clay, and I just want to start playing with open. But as I was saying, Peter Chan uses sphagnum moss peat, he uses loam, a 50-50 mix, and then he mixes akadama and grit, which is similar to that stuff I was talking about last week with Tim Harris, with his which is like 70% moss peat, 20% loam, 10% grit. Oh, and Peter Chan mixes what do you call it through his as well, wood, for his bonsai mix, because it holds nutrition because it's got a high cation exchange capacity, but it also breaks down and releases nutrients into the bonsai pot, which I think will there's a thing there's pros and cons to it, isn't there? Because as it breaks down slowly, it's releasing nutrients into your aquarium, but what it's also releasing is it's releasing tannins into your water, isn't it? So there's a cost-benefit analysis to be there, because like you're going to end up with a black water wall stop, aren't you, or ecosystem dirty tank if you got that. But I want to I want to play with my soil mixes definitely, and I think that's what we need to be doing with our dirted aquariums. I think that's got to be the next iteration. Like, we've got the Wallstar method, we've got the science behind it. I feel like we should be moving it further along now. Guys, it's been 2 hours 35 minutes. I could sit here for another 2 hours and 35 minutes talking to you, but I think we should wrap it up now. Well, thanks for joining me. I appreciate the time that you've given up to come and listen to me bang on Saturday night about modding fish tanks and ponds and bonsai and fish keeping. So, but these are the things I feel like we've got the science behind it. We don't need to rewrite the nitrogen cycle, as you know, don't need to reinvent the wheel with nitrogen cycle wheel. So that's where I think we should be going now. We should be looking at MD aquascaping or dirted tanks and seeing what else we can play with. Right guys, I'm going to shoot. Take care and I'll see you soon.